It's easy to think that we're stuck in a world that pushes us around, whether that's because of war, the economy, bad politicians, or others who have an agenda that are having an effect on our life. But the simple truth is, none of that is so. Today, I'm going to show you a simple and practical key that you could use on how to stop being a victim and take control of your life, starting now. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, the simple way to self-realization. So if you want total control of your mind and more happiness and abundance in your life, then you come to the right place. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. You're going to love what we show you. Primarily because what we do here is 100% experiential, meaning you don't need to believe what I say or what anybody else says, but you could take it for checking and prove it to yourself and get real world results. Because talk is cheap. It's not what you say, it's what you can do. And if you're ready to see what you could really do, then make sure you subscribe here. And if you are a subscriber and you love the work that we do, it makes a big difference in your life, then let us know. Hit the like button below and share your gains, share your experiences, or any questions that you have. I'll jump in and answer those whenever I can. Now today, we're going to pick up on a series of videos that I started about 5 years ago that I collectively call Keys to Successfully Letting Go. And the purpose of these videos, this collection, is to highlight the key lessons in Lester Levenson's method that really makes or breaks your success in using the method. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Lester Levenson, I'll just give you a quick idea of who he is. He was a physicist and an engineer who realized at a certain point in his life that all the knowledge that he'd accumulated didn't get him the answers that he was looking for. Just got him to the place where he was a dead man. He had suffered a second massive heart attack, and the doctor sent him home to die. And so realizing that he'd been barking up the wrong tree his whole life, he started to look for answers someplace else. And he stumbled upon a method that is natural to all of us, to let go of all of our unnatural, negative, unloving feelings. And by simply letting go, he quickly became enlightened, just like a Christ, just like a Buddha, or any other master that you may have heard of. So Lester Levenson is a true spiritual master who developed a very simple and practical method for the rest of us to follow in his footsteps and the footsteps of all the other great masters. And so that's what we're here to do, is continue Lester's work and get to that place of mastership ourselves. Now, the key lesson that I'm going to highlight today is, in my mind, one of the most important lessons in all of Lester's work that really makes or breaks the success in using the method. And I've been teaching Lester's method for over 20 years, and I traveled the world doing weekend classes, hundreds and hundreds of these classes. And over the hundreds of classes, I witnessed a turning point each and every time we hit this particular lesson here. It's like this opened up the gates of freedom and understanding of ourselves and really put us in the driver's seat to really take command of our lives. So this is a big aha moment in the whole experience of learning Lester's method. And I want to highlight that here today. Now, of course, in our classes, when we do this work in depth, we have specific exercises that we work on to work on this particular lesson. But I just want to get the idea across to you so you can start examining this for yourself. And this idea, this lesson, is about taking responsibility. Now, here's the thing about taking responsibility. For most of us, responsibility isn't a very attractive concept. I at least know for myself, like when I was a little kid, the idea of taking responsibility either meant that I did something wrong or I made a mistake and I have to own up to it. Right? I had to take responsibility for what I did. And that wasn't very pleasant. Or it meant that I had to grow up and start acting like an adult, which also wasn't a very attractive concept to me. So the idea of take responsibility for a lot of us might not seem like something that we really want to take on. It might seem like a lot of work, or that we might have to confront some things that we just don't want to look at. And here's the thing. Take responsibility is completely different than what we think that it is, what our mind makes it out to be. And hopefully I'm going to get that across to you today, because this is something that if you do it, it really opens up freedom and ease. It enables you to get your goals just like that. It's a very powerful concept, and it really makes or breaks whether or not you get far using Lester's method. So before we get into that, I want to share with you what Lester says about taking responsibility. All right, so just listen. If you want one practical key for quickly reaching the goal, I would recommend that you take full responsibility for everything that happens to you. We have lost sight of our mastership and have deluded ourselves into thinking that we are victims in a world that controls us, that pushes us around. It isn't so. We are causing what is happening to us by giving power, our power, to the external world. If you want to regain your control, you must take full responsibility. How to regain your control? Examine your thinking and correct it. Develop the habit of honest introspection by asking yourself, where did I cause this to happen to me? And holding it until the thought that caused the happening comes out of the subconscious into the conscious plane. Then you recognize your mastership, that you caused that pleasant or unpleasant experience to happen to you. And the more you'll do this, the easier it becomes, and the more able you become, until finally you recognize that you are always the master. All right, so that's what Lester says. Now, here's the thing about taking responsibility. First of all, it's not about blaming yourself. If you look around the world today, you'll notice that there's a big victim mentality going on. A lot of people, they're acting like victims. I have no power. Those others have the power, and they've always had the power, and they've been pushing me down. They've been holding me down, and I can't stand it. Something must be done about that. And the problem with this mentality is when you're coming from a victim, that sort of mentality, you got nowhere to go. Really, you're either in apathy, because you're stuck. I got nothing to do. It's always them that's in power. It's always going to be that way. And no matter how hard I try to fight against the machine's just going to roll me over. Now, if you think that, well, I am going to stand up and take action and do something about those that have done me wrong, there's no resolution in that either. Because what's the solution there? They must be stopped. Or in a deeper level, they must be eradicated. They must be wiped out, destroyed. And that's the only way. Once they're out of the picture, then I can thrive. Now, you could see this with all sorts of attitudes, and all sorts of conflicts going on. And it's very easy to see that there is no resolution to this. This sort of fighting just creates more conflict, more fighting. It's just an endless back and forth. It basically just creates karma that harms you. So, coming from this victim mentality in the first place, there's no way out of it. And of course, there's a lot of people that I would say prey upon this victim mentality. They're the so-called saviors, the empathizers. Oh, you poor thing. Yes, I know. I recognize you're struggling. You've had it so bad. Everyone's been keeping you down. And that sort of condescending attitude, let's be honest, doesn't help anybody. And it serves that other person's ego because it puts them in a position of superiority. And it kind of maintains a status quo. Yeah, and I look down on you and you have it so hard, poor you. Ha ha ha, I'm better. Right? Is silently what they're really saying. So, once we see that this sort of victim mentality gets us nowhere, then we can start looking elsewhere for answers. Now, here's another thing about taking responsibility. It's not about beating yourself up either. Like if you recognize, I made a decision, I caused this calamity in my life, stupid me. Well, beating yourself up is not taking responsibility. If you get angry, you get frustrated, right? You disapprove of yourself, that's not taking responsibility. That's giving your power away to your mind, your thoughts, and your feelings, and letting those run you. Right? So there's no responsibility in that either. So it's not about beating yourself up. It's not about, victim blaming, victim shaming, anything like that. It's about standing up. It's about lifting yourself up from this state of apathy and, being under the thumb of something else, whatever force out there, is harming you, and just lifting yourself up into a place of courageousness where it's just a simple attitude. I'm in charge. It's up to me. And no matter what has happened to me, even if it's something horrible, horrific, that maybe somebody else seemed to have perpetrated upon me, somewhere, somehow, it's ultimately my responsibility. And that is a very freeing attitude. Because when you come from this attitude, now you're no longer a victim. You're more coming from courageousness. And now there's something that you can do about it. Like Lester said, you could take an honest introspection in yourself and ask, where did I cause this to happen to me? But before we get into that, let's just take a very practical approach to this whole thing. Because let's just say that something bad happened to you. And you can't fathom how you created it. It's just something that happened to you, right? There's an evil person or a terrible circumstance, maybe an act of God, bad weather, maybe a flood or tornado just wiped out your whole livelihood or something. You're like, how did I make that happen? Right? So it's not about making up stories or anything like that. But you could still take this attitude. And here's how you do it. Here's the simple thing that you can do to start making a shift in your life. So let's just say something bad happened, right? All right, so it happened. Big deal. Right? It's something that happened in the past. I can't change what happened. But I can change how I feel about it. Because if I feel bad about what happened, how does that help me? So what if something bad happened to me? If I feel bad about it, does that change what happened? Does that give me a solution? Or does it just keep me stuck in a cycle of thinking about what happened, how bad it was, and how weak I am, and on and on and on? and I never get out of that cycle. But if I take the attitude of, well, I can't change what happened, but moving forward now, do I want to feel bad about it, or would I rather look forward and just be positive and loving moving forward? And that right there is a step in taking responsibility. Because, like I said, you don't have to believe anything that I say or what Lester says, but you could take it for checking, you could prove it to yourself. And so you might not be able to prove or see a causality in something that bad happened, but that doesn't stop you from taking responsibility for how you feel about it and what you decide to do from this point moving forward. Make sense? All right, so that's that simple attitude that gives you the ability to start moving in a positive direction and gives you the tools to actually do something about it rather than sit around and complain about it. All right, so this attitude, if you did it, you can undo it. So now let's take a step forward. And let's just assume that anything that happened to us was a result of our own thinking. And let me give you an example. Say you get sick. You get some sort of disease. Oh, it just happened. How did I create that to happen? Well, a lot of times, when you start looking introspectively, wherein did I cause this to happen? You might see that, some time ago, maybe a long time ago, you had a thought about that happening and you had a big fear about it. Ooh, I don't want that to happen to me. Oh, I hope that never happens. And see, when you start to examine the mind and how the mind really works, you'll see that all the mind is just a recording and playback machine. That's all it does. That voice in your head and everything that it tells you is just a recording of what you put into it in the past. And so I'll give you an example. When you go throughout your day and you're out in the street and maybe somebody steps on your foot, right? They do something that's rude to you. And then what does your mind do all the rest of the day after that event happened? It complains about, oh, what so-and-so did. Oh, I should have told them off. I should have said that, or I wish I wasn't there in the first place. Right? It just talks about it all day long. Even after the whole thing is done and over, you're back home and you're ready to go to bed, your mind still won't shut up. It's still thinking about what happened earlier in the day. And that's all it does, is it records things and it plays them back to you, whether you want to listen to them or not. That's all your mind is just a recording and playback machine. And so when you have a thought, oh, I hope that doesn't happen to me. I hope I don't get in an accident. Notice, that thought goes into your mind. And also, the way the mind works is that it works only in pictures. So if I say, don't fall down, what do you get a picture of? Falling down, right? The mind doesn't process the words not or don't. It just goes right to the picture. So that's why, when you think, oh, I hope I don't get into an accident, right there, you get a picture of having an accident. That goes into your mind. And your mind is also a creative instrument. So that picture that you're holding in mind, this is why you say, like, oh, don't spill the milk. Don't spill that. Don't do that. Next thing that happens, the milk gets spilled. Right? So that's just the way the mind works. And when you start examining it and you start examining the thoughts that you've had in the past, what you put into the mind, then you start realizing how much responsibility you have. And it's not a bad thing. It's not something to beat yourself up over. It's something to go, oh, wow. Well, if I created it, then I can uncreate it. But if I didn't do it, it's just something that happened to me, then I'm stuck. And I have to wait for someone or something out there to change. I make myself out to be a victim. in a world that controls me, that pushes me around. And it's just all my own picture. So that is simply Lester's message. It's basically the same message every other master has that has ever come along. All of them say the same thing, that you are an infinite being yourself, too. Act like it. Now, on a note of taking responsibility, I want to point out something that I used to love hearing from my teacher, Larry Crane, who was a student of Lester. And Larry continued on Lester's work. And Larry, he didn't give the ego any quarter whatsoever. He didn't entertain anybody's ego at all. And what I used to often hear Larry say, and I love this because it was just a huge reminder about who's in charge, is that someone would call up on the phone and say, Larry, you got to help me. My mind is driving me crazy. I can't stand it. Please help me. And the first thing Larry said was, okay, put the owner on the phone. Huh? Wait, the owner? Yeah, because right now I'm talking to an ego. I'm not talking to a free person. I'm talking to an ego right now, complaining, acting like a victim to that mind. But I just heard you say, my mind is driving me crazy. You said it, my mind. Right? You owned up to the fact that you own that mind. It is yours. So act like it now. Stop acting like that mind is bossing you around, that you have no control over it. That's nonsense. Right? So that started off the conversation, and that basically helps people to discriminate and go, oh, yeah, okay, all right. I'm going to stop letting my ego run the show right now. And let's get to work and let's start undoing this thing. So what you ultimately discover as you start practicing, take responsibility. And like I said, it just starts with a simple attitude. You might not fully see it, but just have the attitude. Hey, anything that's happened to me, good or bad, it's all my picture. It's all my creation. Even if I don't see it right now, I'm just going to come from that position and see where it is I created it. What have I got to lose? Otherwise, I'm a victim. I have to wait for something or something out there to change. Right? So it's just a simple attitude. And when you start adopting this attitude, then you start to realize everything is a decision. And if you are familiar with Lester, you've probably heard some other talks that he's made. You've probably heard him say that, all of us, we want to be a creator, right? Like the law of attraction. We want to consciously create wealth and abundance and all this good stuff. And so we're always looking for, how do I do that? How do I be a creator? And Lester simply pointed out, hey, you're a creator right now, whether you realize it or not. Everything in your life is your creation. All I have to do is just start examining and come from the attitude of, I'm creating this. And looking in yourself to examine your thinking. See where those pictures, those stories are that you put into your mind and how they're affecting what you're seeing around you. And so this is a practice that, like I said, puts you in the driver's seat and gives you the ability to release and stop complaining and stop looking for someone else, some other guru or some other method to do it for you, but for you to take the reins yourself, right? Take that wheel, put yourself in the driver's seat and steer your own way now. All right? So let's put this into practice. I'm going to show you how you can start doing something about it by taking responsibility. Right? So think about something that has happened to you. Right? Maybe something bad. And maybe you see, yeah, well, I created this to happen, but I don't know how I could have been in control otherwise. I just seem out of control. It's compulsive. I know it's wrong, but I do it anyway. And that created a bad thing. All right, so you might see something like that. Or you might just see another bad event. Right? Maybe you lost a lot of money. Maybe you broke up a relationship that you wanted, and you lost it, or something traumatic happened to you even. So just think about something that happened to you that you still want to change. I wish that didn't happen. I wish I could go back and have a different path in my life. And notice, first of all, how ridiculously futile that is, to try to go back and change something that already happened. You're trying to go back into the past, and for all you know, it's just your imagination. As Eckhart Tolle points out, past, future, you've never been there. You've never met the past. You've never met the future, ever. You have only existed right now. And so the past, the future is only in your mind. And look at how ridiculous it is trying to change something that you can't possibly change. It already happened. Even if it was real, it already happened. So sitting around wanting to change it, it's a waste of time. So you can take responsibility and right now and just decide, all right, well, what am I holding in mind as long as I'm wanting to change it? Because remember, the mind deals in pictures. If I say don't fall down, what do you get a picture of? So when you're wanting to change something, what are you holding in mind? Are you holding in mind a solution? Or are you holding in mind that horrible thing, that problem that you want to go away, that you want to change? And that's the picture that you keep looking at in your mind the whole time. And if that's what you're holding in your mind, the problem, then it's no wonder why it hasn't changed. And so you got to take responsibility. If it's not changing, maybe it's because you're holding the wrong thing in mind. And now look at how you feel about it. As long as you want to change it, does that feel freeing or does that feel stuck? And who's doing that? Now, if everything is a decision, and everything is your decision, would you rather be free or would you rather be stuck? Would you rather be positive and loving, or would you rather be negative and complaining and wanting to change something? Which do you prefer? So, I'm assuming that you're preferring to be free. You're preferring to be positive. And the first step is just notice if you're disapproving of what happened or disapproving of yourself. Because either you saw that, yeah, well, I did cause this to happen to me, but, oh, stupid me, I'm beating myself up. Or it just happened to me, poor me, and I'm still beating myself up. Either way. Now, like I said earlier, if you get into beating yourself up, that has nothing to do with taking responsibility. You're just letting your ego run the show right now. And who does that ego, who does that mind belong to? All right, so act like the owner now. And you make a decision. I'm going to be positive and love what happened and love myself, or I'm going to be negative and hate it. Hate that it happened to me. And you might look at something and go, well, that was a pretty horrible thing. How could I not hate it? Well, discriminate. How's hating it going to change anything? Versus by hating it, you're just holding the thing in mind and just rubbing your own face in it constantly. So what do you decide to do? Would you want to let that go finally and be positive and loving and take a different path now? Or do you want to keep on doing what you've been doing and getting the same results that you've always been getting? What do you decide? All right, so again, I'm assuming that you're deciding to be positive and loving. So get in touch with that disapproval of yourself or disapproval of the situation, what happened. And if it doesn't help by disapproving of it, and you're the one who's doing that, now you can make a decision, right? Could you let go disapproving of it a little bit? It's just a decision, yes or no. Everything in life is a decision. And could you let go disapproving of it a little bit more? And could you let go disapproving of it a little bit more? And some more. And just discriminate. How does it help you to feel bad about it? And it's nothing you can argue about. If you're disapproving of it, you're feeling bad. And you're doing that. How does it help you to feel bad? So could you let go disapproving of it? Yes or no? Just decide, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go for positive and love. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to love everything in my life, no matter what happened, no matter what's going on. I'm going to be like all the masters. All the masters are all about love, aren't they? Well, how about I step up and do the same thing myself? Right? So could you let go disapproving of it a little bit more? And could you let go disapproving of yourself? And could you let go disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And some more. And could you let go disapproving of yourself even more? And some more. And even more. And even more. And could you let go disapproving of yourself even more? And even more. And even more. All right? Now just notice how you feel right now. Notice if you feel a little bit lighter than you did a few moments ago. Notice the difference? And who did that? Who made that decision? If you feel a difference, if you feel lighter, a little bit freer, less burdened by the thoughts and feelings about this thing and feeling stuck about the situation, you might also notice you feel a little bit more freer with more of a possibility of, oh, maybe I could find a solution at this point. And who did that? And that there is proving that when you take responsibility, you are the master. Number one, your proof is you could change how you feel about it. That's step one. And if you keep doing it, the next step is actually seeing a shift, something actually change in the world around you, and realizing, oh, that's just a reflection of my own thinking. Now I'm not holding the wrong thing in mind. Now, could you give yourself some approval? Just because positive doesn't hurt anything. And what you can simply do is decide, I'm going to be positive despite what's going on. I'm going to be loving despite what happened. Isn't that a courageous and loving and powerful attitude to take rather than acting like a victim? It's just a decision. So could you give yourself a little bit more approval? And could you give yourself some more approval? And no reason. It's not like patting yourself on the back, oh, I'm such a capable and great person, everybody likes me. It's not that. It's just, could you like yourself? Period. That's it. Just because. And could you give yourself some more approval? And some more. And even more. And even more. And notice how you feel. See if you feel even lighter, even more free now. And this doesn't have to be some big cataclysmic experience. It's just a lighter feeling. That's all we're looking for. It's just showing that now you're moving the right direction. Getting yourself unstuck from that situation. And as you keep moving in this direction, and you stop listening to your mind And you notice that mind, all it does is want to complain, doesn't it? Stop listening to that thing. And once you do, you're going to start tapping into an intelligence that's far greater, far more infinite than that mind. And you're just going to start getting answers like that. So, like Lester said, this step right here, this attitude of take responsibility for everything, is the key to abundance. And for those of you that are more familiar with Lester's work, you might know of Lester's 5 fast steps to freedom that he came up with when he decided that he was going to leave this plane. And he gave these 5 things to the graduates where they could take any one of these things and they'll take them all the way to freedom. And one of those things was to take responsibility for everything. If you just do this for everything in your life, it'll take you all the way. Now, what we've done here is just barely scratching the surface of any work. If you really want to go deep into this work and take something that has been a problem, has been a stuck point in your life, and completely dismantle it out of your mind and change the whole course of your life instantly, then join us. Taking a deep dive into this work is what it's all about. It's the practice, it's the commitment, it's the concentration. That's more than just showing up every once in a while to a YouTube video. And what you could do is you could join one of the 6-week classes. The next one's coming up is the Wealth Manifestation course. So it's all about seeing what you've been holding in mind about your ability to have wealth and just blowing the hinges off of that. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll put a link to it up above and also in the description below. But like I said, these keys to freedom, these keys to making Lester's method work is something that are often overlooked. And it's a constant practice and constant reminder and application of these keys that gets you good at it, because releasing is a skill. So get skilled and be skillful and prove your mastership. So join us and keep releasing, take it to the next level, and see who you really are.